my pleasure to welcome today Professor Nuria Sanchez Madrid. She is Associate Professor of Philosophy at the Department of Philosophy and Society at the Complutense University of Madrid in Spain. She's a specialist on classical German thought, contemporary philosophy, the history of Greek philosophy, and the history of political ideas, focusing on Kant, Aristotle, Hannah Arendt, Wendy Brown, and Judith Butler. She is the editor of Hannah Arendt y la literatura, published in 2016, and of A Civilização como Destino, Kant e as Formas de Reflexão. She is also the co-editor of Kant and Social Policies with Palgrave Macmillan in 2016, and Kant's Doctrine of Right in the 21st Century with University of Wales Press in 2018. She has also several articles. She's a very prolific writer in Spanish, in English, so you can check her work on her academia page. Now, she's a very active scholar. She's a driving force in Spanish academia and in Kant scholarship. For instance, she's the chairwoman of the Academic Society of Philosophy of Spain. She is the first coordinator of the research project Labor Precarity, Body and Damaged Life. She's also the coordinator of the research group Normativity, Emotions, Discourse and Society, and coordinator of the Latin American, Portuguese and Spanish network, Kant, Ethics, Politics and Society. Nuria, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us today, and we are looking forward to your lecture. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Alice, for your flattering presentation, as always. Thank you for having invited me to this very interesting initiative of lectures focusing on Jewish thought, on the legacy, the contemporary legacy of Jewish thought. I'm very, very happy, very glad to take part in this. And I prepare a PowerPoint presentation. I will try to share so that you can follow the texts I would like to read and comment. I hope you are seeing the presentation. Okay. The size is good for all.
Yes.
Alice, yes? Okay, first of all, I would like to say some preliminary words about Hannah Arendt's role in the reflection of the Jewish tradition, of the Jewish philosophy, the Jewish culture. Really, Hannah Arendt never felt as a political theorist a kind of safekeeper of Hebrew religion and culture. She really didn't wish to compete with figures as, for example, Gerschom Scholem. I would like to begin with the controversy, the interesting but also painful controversy that Hannah Arendt held with Scholem about the meaning of to be part of Jewish community, about the meaning of love felt for the Jewish people. She really didn't intend to compete with the figure of Scholem, but unwittingly the publication of Arendt's report, Eichmann in Jerusalem, A Report on the Banality of Evil, put her unwittingly on the spotlight. So, as always in Arendt's life, she reacted defending herself against the criticism this book received, and especially she defended herself towards a very hard, a very vexed letter, a quite annoying letter she received from Gerschom Scholem. I would like to break down, to articulate my lecture in different steps. And so the first step will be this contention, this controversy between Arendt and Scholem about the meaning of the political, and especially about the meaning of loving or not loving the Jewish people. I think that this controversy could give us quite clear, quite concrete overview about which were the tenets of Arendt's political reflection about her belongingness, her belonging to the Jewish people. As is well known, Arendt covered for the New Yorker, for this American journal, the trial of Adolf Eichmann. Eichmann was a criminal, a Nazi criminal, a former SS official of the Nazi regime. And Arendt traveled, charged by this New Yorker journal, traveled to Jerusalem to follow the trial, to attend the sessions, and with the notes that Arendt wrote down in the sessions as she attended the trial, she composed a book, a report, this report on the banality of evil, and she highlights in this report the fact that during the sessions, Eichmann was incapable of reckoning with the effects of his deeds. He was incapable to reflect about the consequences of his acts as an official of the Nazi regime. He controlled an important part of the deportation and destruction of Jewish people during this totalitarian regime, but he appeared in the sessions as only focusing on the aim to be professionally promoted. He dreamt of a professional promotion, and this professional promotion ought to be followed at any cost. So for Arendt, this astonishing figure of Eichmann represented an embodiment of an absolute lack of the faculty of judgment. Eichmann didn't have a faculty of judgment, was completely incapable of reckoning with the effects, the consequences, and the destructive consequences of his acts. He always, during the trial, he always put as example and also as a justification of his deeds that he always tried to abide with the laws as to abide with the Kantian categorical imperative. That was very often example in Eichmann's utterances in the sessions of the trial. And Arendt was especially shocked by this example. Naturally, she highlighted in the report that the only thing that was meaningful for Eichmann was professional promotion. The Nazi regime was the necessary tool to achieve this promotion. But she remained also shocked and astonished by the fact that Eichmann didn't appear as a person able to reflect. And this incapacity to reflect also was, so to say, was a means that led him completely incapable to develop his political condition. Eichmann didn't think, didn't reflect, but he also has any sense for comprehend what does it mean to live politically in the earth. Gerschom Scholem was very annoyed by the use of the expression banality of evil in this book of Arendt. But especially he appears vexed by the fact that in this report, Arendt also highlighted and also mentioned the participation of the called Judenräte during the Nazi period, in the Nazi regime, the participation of this Judenräte to the deportation, the mass deportation of Jews in Germany and in Mitteleuropa during the years of the Nazi regime. Highlighting this fact, by highlighting this fact, Scholem asked Arendt to explain, to justify why, first of all, she had chosen this expression, the banality of evil, an expression which looked like to relativize the evil suffered, the huge social suffering of the Jewish people, and why she had mentioned in the report also this alleged cooperation of Judenräte in the mass deportation of Jews. Arendt received this vexed letter of Scholem, and naturally she became nervous, and she saw very clear that she had to defend herself. She also felt that she was victim of a kind of campaign of destruction of her, provoked by the fact that she boldly defended her own standpoint about the trial, the Eichmann's trial, and the facts that developed during this trial in Jerusalem. And so she felt that the Orthodox Zionism, the Zionism transformed in the mainstream in the 60s, in the 20th century, was clearly prosecuting her and prosecuting the idea of the Jewish identity, the idea of a Jewish agenda, a Jewish politics that Arendt was defending from the 40s. I would like to read, if you agree, the first excerpt I chose from the reply that Arendt gave to this letter of Gerschom Scholem, is what you find in this first step. I would like to read the excerpt, in this case complete, because I think it will give us a quite complete overview about the point of disagreement between Arendt and Scholem about what does it mean to be Jew? What does it mean to belong to the Jewish community? I read the text. It belongs to a letter from the 24th July of the 1963, the same year where the banality of evil, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil was published in Viking Press. To be a Jew belongs for me to the indisputable facts of my life. And I have never had the wish to change or disclaim facts of this kind. There is such a thing as a basic gratitude for everything that is as it is, for what has been given and not made, for what is physi and not nomoi. To be sure, such an attitude is pre-political, but in exceptional circumstances, such as the circumstances of Jewish politics, it's bound to have also political consequences. So, as it were, in a negative way. To come to the point, let me begin going on from what I have just stated with what you call love of the Jewish people, or Ahabat Israel. Incidentally, I would be very grateful if you could tell me since when this concept has played a role in Judaism, when it was first used in Hebrew language and literature, etc. You are quite right. I'm not moved by any love of this sort, and for two reasons. I have never in my life loved any people or collective, neither the German people, nor the French, nor the American, not the working class or anything of any sort. I indeed love only my friends, and the only kind of love I know and believe in is the love of persons. Secondly, this love of the Jews will appear to me, since I am myself Jewish, as something rather suspect. I cannot love myself or anything which I know is part and parcel of my own person. End of quotation. I think I said that this excerpts from Arendt's reply to Scholem give us an overview of the great disagreement they had about Jewish belonging. First of all, in this text, Arendt establishes a very clear, very hard distinction between the private sphere, the space where love, where affects arise, and the space where political alliances become possible. This is Arendt's celebrated difference and also a polemic difference between the private space and the public space. In the private sphere, we learn to feel and we get attached to our family, to our friends, to our lovers. But this is not the space where we find with others the experience of equality, of political, civil equality. Arendt was always very keen on the idea that to appear towards others in the public space, we have to forget, we have to say farewell to the private sphere where we love people, where we feel attached to other people, to other human beings. The private sphere does not know pure, barely human beings, but knows persons. Even if personal experience of social suffering are just the subject to act politically, cultural or religious belonging cannot unfold by itself a political agenda. I think this idea is also contained in Arendt's reply. To suffer as Jewish and as a Jewish woman, social exclusion, a civil exclusion from the nation state, for example, this is a factor that wakes up a subject to the political life, to the political challenge of become from a passive citizen an active citizen. But it's important for Arendt to highlight that equality, that public freedom, not private freedom, that is the freedom to think, the freedom to think in my home, to think by myself, but the public freedom that gives the people the capacity to appear, to express their own opinions about public issues. These are not cultural issues or features. They are political structures. Equality, public freedom are the consequences of already having a political structure. And the political structure, and I think that this could be also considered a Hegelian, a quite Hegelian idea in Arendt's political theory. The public realm doesn't know differences between Christians or Catholic, Protestant, Jewish subjects, but the public realm considered all the subjects, despite their different religions, cultures, social classes, as equal subjects. It's the political structures what determine the political features of human life, and not on the contrary. The cultural, the merely cultural, we could say also as a kind of hint to Judith Butler's article, the merely cultural is not justified, is not enough to found a political agenda. It could happen naturally that nationality, gender, or religion become the center of political discussion. But this is not a victory of politics. It rather reveals that the nation-state model does not include all social groups, especially those groups considered minorities, that is, the kind of group that Jews were considered in the 19th century and also at the beginning of the 20th century, whose social and moral vulnerability it increases. When a social group is considered a minority, Arendt highlights that this group is targeted, is marked as a vulnerable group, as a non-active group in a political sense. And finally, to belong to a national community does not exhaust for Arendt the political concerns of a human being. To be part of the Jewish people is a fact, is something physical, is something natural. and we have to bless what it is as it is. We have to bless the fact that we are given this identity, that we find ourselves through the condition of the natality as Jews and not Christians, for example. But the political is not a celebration of this givenness. The politics are rather a discursive construction instead of a deduction stemming from natural traits. So, regarding this Jewish belonging, Arendt considered that Jewishness was a given fact, but not a political commitment. And Scholem considered, on the contrary, that this distinction between the natural and the political in Arendt showed a lack of love for the Jewish people, a lack of this Ahabat Israel that also meant that the Jews should be committed to treat their fellows and to love their fellows as they love themselves. The Ahabat Israel was considered a key tenet of the Torah, but also as a kind of cosmopolitan tenet of the Jewish culture. We could move, if you agree, to the second step of the presentation, letting on the map this very intense controversial between Arendt and Scholem. I would like to give a short review of the different reactions that Jew people showed towards this passive citizenship usual for Jewish people in Europe, in the European continent. Arendt distinguished from the 30s on the different positions that people as Stefan Zweig, a well-renowned writer that finally committed suicide in Brazil, in the exile in Brazil, because he was incapable of support the form of life he had to run as an exile, as a German Jew exile in the Nazi totalitarian years. And she highlighted the fact that against the passivity and the unconsciousness of people, of celebrated writers as Zweig, in the 19th century, a humble Jewish woman as Rael van Hagen showed a resistance, a civil resistance that was very inspiring for Hannah Arendt, also in a personal sense, also as a personal example that gave existential relief to Arendt in the dark times. I would like to begin with this figure of Stefan Zweig. He was member of this international society of famous people that finally in 1933 ended up, bursted out, and what Zweig found as this global international society disappear was not the privilege, was not the civil right, but was the complete lack of political right. as a Jew. For reasons of time, for saving time, I will pass directly on the comments to the comments of this excerpt from a review, a hard review that Arendt published of an essay of Stefan Zweig, The War of Yesterday. The review was published in 1943. And in this review, Arendt underscores the fact that intellectual and artistic celebrity was often regarded by this kind of writers, but also of artists, as a false surrogate of public appearance. To be popular in the social realm does not yield the sheltering effect of being recognized as a citizen equal to others in rights. But anyway, Stefan Zweig consider that to appear in this global celebrity war was the same to be an active member of a political community. Inspired by the work, by the writings of a Zionist in the shadow, Bernard Lazare, not Theodor Herzl, the father of the Orthodox Zionism that finally became mainstream for Jewish people, but getting inspiration, receiving inspiration from the writings of Bernard Lazare, Arendt saw in this figure, in the biography, in the itinerary, in the failure of Stefan Zweig, the tragedy of the parvenu. The parvenu is not the beggar, is not the schnorrer, is not the Jew forced to beg and to receive the help of the plutocrats, of rich people who become donors for the Jewish people. The parvenu is the social promoted Jew. The tragedy of these parvenus consists in the fact that they forget the lack of civil rights by enjoying the privileges of the mundane comfort. It explains the ties between the Bankjuden that helped, for example, the King Frederick the Great in Prussia, and the 20th century successful Jewish artists and writers, as Stefan Zweig. The right to global mobility helps the notorious writer or the notorious artist to forget that actually they don't possess any concrete nationality. And Arendt sees in this fact a dark face of a superficial cosmopolitanism. Arendt considered that antisemitism had also generated a kind of global mobility that at the same time that allows that Jewish famous, notorious people travel all the war, it gives the message that none of these famous people have a concrete nationality. The removal of privileges, this is the disgrace, the lack of honor of Stefan Zweig, does not enact civil rights, that is, civil honor. The threat of being exposed as a mere human being cannot be overcome by global mobility or by a superficial cosmopolitanism. The threat of being exposed as a mere human being could be only overcome by the disposal, by enacting civil rights. To enjoy privileges does not generate any civil recognition for the Jewish people. The tragical effects of rooted forms of subaltern life for the Jewish population were clearly embodied by the biography of Stefan Zweig. The parvenu was also a figure pierced by nihilism, an example of life devoid from any political meaning, and a paradigm of civil passivity. This is what Arendt finds in the itinerary of Zweig. And how to stoke the political interest of a subject of Stefan Zweig, how to wake up the unconscious Jewish people, the people, the Jew people, unconscious of the political demands of humanity. Naturally, Arendt had no concrete reply, a concrete answer for this question. She limited to require and to encourage Jewish people to just to wake up to political activity and just to try to rebel themselves against the lack of civil rights. I would like to mention a little bit later some misgivings I have against this too optimistic idea, approach of Arendt towards the making of the civil emancipation of Jews. Let's move now to a second type of reaction against Jewish subalternity. I would like to see as two related parts of my lecture the position of Bernard Lazare, the figure, the expression of the conscious pariah that, as I mentioned before, Arendt took from Bernard Lazare's writings, and I would like to put Bernard Lazare's position in relation with Arendt's appraisal of Kafka's novel, of Kafka's literature as a kind of literary transcript of the tragedy of Jewish emancipation, of failed Jewish emancipation in the European continent. I would like to read in this case, in the case of Bernard Lazare, Bernard Lazare's portrait of the conscious pariah in contrast with the unconscious pariah, the unconscious Jew. I would like to read the last part of this 3-1 excerpt that comes as the next from quite known writing of Arendt, The Jew as a Pariah, a Hidden Tradition. I read from the ellipsis on. It was the fact that when Bernard Lazare tried to stop the pariah from being a schlemiel, when he sought to give him a political significance, he encountered only the schnorrer, the beggar in Yiddish. And once the pariah becomes a schnorrer, he is worth nothing, not because he is poor and begs, but because he begs from those whom he ought to fight, and because he appraises his poverty by the standards of those who have caused it. The parvenu who fears lest he becomes a pariah, and the pariah who aspires to become parvenu are brothers under the skin and appropriately aware of their kinship. I would like to add to this excerpt the reading of some sentences from this excerpt from The Jew as a Pariah, where Arendt highlights the literary legacy of Kafka and the important scope that this literary transcript of the assimilation, the drama of assimilation, represents for her political theory. In this text, Arendt focuses on Kafka's description of the demands that the role of K in the novel The Castle, the interest that K has on defending basic human rights and on defending these rights as basic rights that should be respected and should be enacted by all the nations around the earth. K, this Kafkian role, is not disposed to see that these basic rights are removed as a kind of result of fate or result of a gift that the officials from the castle give to the villagers. He wants and he stands on these basic rights because he considers that all human life on earth has right to see recognized these basic capacities, capabilities or faculties. And so in this text and giving this account of Kafka's political legacy, Arendt says that K, in his effort to become indistinguishable, is interested only in universals, in things which are common to all mankind. His desires are directed only toward those things to which all men have a natural right. He is, in a word, the typical man of goodwill. He demands no more than that which constitutes every man's right, and he will be satisfied with no less. His entire ambition is to have a home, a position, real work to do, to marry, and to become a member of the community. I will move to the ellipsis. I read from the ellipsis on at the end of the excerpt. So long as the village remains under the control of the castle, its inhabitants can be nothing but the passive victims of their respective fates. There is no place in it for any man of goodwill who wishes to determine his own existence. So we put together these two excerpts from the hidden tradition from the Jew as a pariah. I would say that both passages focus on the epistemic chains suffered by unemancipated Jews. The kinship between the pariah and the parvenu is very clear for Bernard Lazare, but also for Arendt. Both are subaltern subjects. Both are passive citizens, deprived of the tools to steer an emancipation process. They are deprived of the capacities of the reflective, but also the practical, of the epistemic, but naturally also of the practical capacities to launch an emancipation process. But I also have some misgivings, and I would like to mention it, especially for the discussion, I have some misgivings about what I call Arendt's blindness toward social pleasure and the influence of social pleasure on political agency. The Schlemiel, this subaltern subject whose endeavors always fail, or the Schnorrer, this beggar, this figure of the Jew who always bother other people because has to survive and has to find immediately, urgently economical help to survive, to struggle, just need to awake, according to Arendt, and get rid of their civil capacity, their civil passivity, for gaining a new life as a rebel against the society that excludes him, that excludes them, the Schlemiel and the Schnorrer. My question here, my point here will be whether Arendt is fair enough with the subaltern condition of Jewish people. Naturally, Arendt was not acquainted with what Miranda Fricker, for example, considered and labeled as epistemic justice. Arendt didn't pay special attention, as the Frankfurter School did, to the obstacles, the epistemic obstacles that forestall, that hinder the emancipation process of the subject. So my point here will be to highlight whether we could consider that this awakening of the Schlemiel, of the Schnorrer, of the unemancipated Jew is a so simple and a so easy path. I'm not sure about that. Moving to Kafka, Kafka's novels, especially The Castle, Arendt also considered in different writings, the process, depict a human specimen convinced of the value of the right to have rights as the unique basic human right. Arendt published a very important article in her production about the right to have rights as the unique human right. Yet this claim collides with the national framework of juridical protection, which declares as outlaw, for example, refugees, exiled people, undocumented people. So this right, these values showed by the key role of the Kafka's novel, The Castle, this political conviction does not meet the demands and the requirements that the nation state impose to those people that look for juridical protection. The main obstacle that Kafka's role, K, finds in the village symbolically dominated by the castle is the narrow mind of the villagers, the narrow mind of the others, of the inhabitants of the village. They got, these villagers got completely used to bury their sense of freedom under the acceptation of a fate that the officials of the castle allegedly assigned to them. So these people, the villagers, sacrificed their sense of freedom, of public freedom, and became victims of a sense of fate where the rights are not obtained, are not enacted, but are the result of a gift, of a privilege that powerful people give to others. if we continue to complete this gallery of Jewish reactions against subalternity, against the lack of civil rights, I would like to mention, to finally mention, the important example that a Jewish woman in the Romantic Berlin, Rahel van Hagen, had to Arendt's reflection of the Jewish question of the Jewish belonging. Rahel van Hagen held a salon during her life. She was very interested in fostering conversation, dialogue between people belonging to different social ranks, different social classes. She was also interested in beginning effective relationships with people, with men belonging to aristocracy, belonging to diplomatics, as the Spanish Rafael de Urquijo, as her final husband, Van Hagen, Carl August Van Hagen. She felt only free in the space of the salon, in the space of the free conversation, but she also felt with a very intense pain the fact that the work she boosted within her salon was not enough to provide to Jewish people equal rights, equal civil and political rights in the Prussia of the 19th century. Rahel van Hagen represented for Arendt a great civil resistance, but also embodied a failure, a political failure, stemming this failure from the fact that the dialogue, the speech, the free speech, was not able to counteract the nationalism of nation state, only able to protect the people from their own nation, the people recognized as the authentic people living within a territory. So the figure of Rahel is a great inspiration for Arendt, but also an example of how a very great effort to overcome the problems, the obstacles of Jewish subalternity could not be enough if they were not accompanied by a political structure, by political institutions, convinced of the fact that Jewish people should not be considered just a minority or just a passive citizenship, a passive part of citizenship, of German citizenship in this case. I won't read the excerpt from Arendt writing, Original Assimilation, which I chose to portray the figure of Rahel van Hagen. Arendt published a biography, a very personal biography of Rahel van Hagen, a biography that was already ended as Arendt began her exile years in 1933. This text is also a quite early Arendt's writing, is from 1934. And I would say about the inspiration that Arendt received from the itinerary, the personal itinerary of Rael van Hagen, of the civil resistance that she showed during all her life, that as a woman deprived of any social recognition due to her both Jewish and humble origin, Rael van Hagen found in the different salons she hosted during her life a surrogate of the defaulting civil structures expected to give sense to human existence. But as I focus here, a surrogate is not an identification to have a surrogate of defaulting civil structures cannot lead to enjoy equal rights with others citizens, with other subjects recognized as active citizens. So Rael was also victim for Arendt, according to Arendt, in Arendt's view, was also victim of a kind of deceit, of self-deceit, of illusion. The dialogue in the salon, the conversation, the free speech in the salon is a very remarkable human issue and human outcome of human convivence, coexistence, but it's not enough to enact civil rights. The art of conversation appears in Arendt's account as an ambiguous phenomenon in dark times. Actually, the art of conversation, the free speech, can generate the illusion that social ranks and social groups and social classes disappear in the salon. Yet, as this social space vanishes, Rael realizes she lacks of any sound support to give a public meaning to her life. The failure of Rael's affective relationships before marrying Carl August van Hagen, a German Prussian diplomat, confirms the weakness of free conversation to counteract the social discrimination that rank and class trigger. Rael's social experiments confirms that 19th century Europe had no intention to make of free speech and of the exchange of opinions a threshold to civil recognition. Then and now, social class and national and cultural belonging fulfilled a determining role to attain active citizenship. And insofar as national and cultural belonging fulfilled this determining role to attain active citizenship, Jewish people were excluded from Prussia, from Germany, as a minority group to the capacity to see recognize their national and cultural features, identities as part of the German identity. This is the most important point for Arendt's denunciation of the effects, of the dramatic effects of the civil exclusion of Jewish people. I mentioned also in these short commentaries of the Serbs focusing on Rael van Hagen, on the fact that in the conversation, in the dialogue, the free speech held in Rael van Hagen's salons, Arendt also saw the appearance of Lessing's philia, of Lessing's sense of friendship, the sense of friendship that Lessing had praised in his writing, in his play, Nathan the Wise. This is a very, very loved play by Arendt, and the philia, in this sense, the friendship, was not related to that love for the Jewish people reclaimed by pundits of Jewish studies as Gerschom Scholem. Arendt didn't understand philia as an emotion, as an affection, but as a pre-politic construction, a kind of tissue that human beings are able to create, to bring about, and to increase insofar as they speak with each other, and they exchange their opinions, and they justify their positions towards the others, and they try to give support to human coexistence, to political coexistence, with the help of language, with the help of discourse. So the philia, friendship, is a quite ambiguous value for Arendt, as naturally when the political times are happy, when politics is a free experience for everybody, for all the human beings, some human beings, as the Jews, for example, are not needed to cultivate the philia as a sort of existential relief. But in those dark times that also Arendt knew in first person, in her own skin, this relationship with others became also a tool to fight for a political agenda for the Jewish people, and to fight for the recognition of equal civil rights also for Jewish people in the European continent and around the world. So Lessin's philia, this friendship inspired in Lessin's writings, was an ambiguous phenomenon, an ambiguous value that in dark times revealed to be very helpful for Jewish people. Rael van Hagel knew this friendship and was happy, and was politically happy within the realm, the sheltering realm created by philia, by friendship. But the problem is that the politics outside, the politics of the national state, of the nation state, didn't recognize the value of this friendship, of this human attachment. I would like to close with this figure of Rael van Hagen, this gallery of Jewish reactions towards the fact of emancipation, and towards the fact of subalternity, of Jewish subalternity. But I would like to finally read some sentences from a very well-known article of Arendt, We Refugees, from the 1943, published in the Menorah Journal in this year, where Arendt describes in a very straightforward style, very recognizable in her accounts of the failures of Jewish assimilation, also in the times of totalitarianism. She highlights in this text, for example, on the anxieties of refugees, German Jewish people. These anxieties have to do with an urgent demand to fit in some space, in some territory, in some society. Jewish people were anxious as they have to flee Germany. They had to begin the period of exile. They had a very urgent necessity to satisfy the sense of belonging to a culture, to a society, to new habits, new uses. And Arendt saw something artificial in it, but instead of denouncing a kind of frailty of refugees' subjectivity, she was more interested in denouncing, by the fact of highlighting these anxieties of refugee people, denouncing the faults of the model, the political model of nation state to protect all the people living in them territories, living in the national territory of the different European states. From them, refugee Jewish people were forced to flee. I would like to read perhaps the beginning of this excerpt and also the end of the text from We Refugees. As soon as we were saved, and most of us had to be saved several times, we started out new lives and tried to follow as closely as possible all the good advice our saviors passed on to us. We were told to forget, and we forgot quicker than everybody ever could imagine. In a friendly way, we were reminded that the new country would become a new home. And after 4 weeks in France or 6 weeks in America, we pretended to be Frenchmen or Americans. The more optimistic among us would even add that their whole former life had been passed in a kind of unconscious exile, and only their new country now taught them what a home really looks like. I moved to the ellipsis. I read after the ellipsis. But before you cast the first stone at us, remember that being a Jew does not give any legal status in this war. If we should start telling the truth that we are nothing but Jews, it could mean that we expose ourselves to the fate of human beings who, unprotected by any specific law of political convention, are nothing but human beings. I can hardly imagine an attitude more dangerous, since we actually live in a war in which human beings as such have ceased to exist for quite a while. Since society discovered discrimination as the great social weapon by which one may kill men without any bloodshed. Since passports or birth certificates, and sometimes even income tax receipts, are no longer formal papers, but matters of social distinction. End of quotation. So, Arendt, in this text, in this We Refugees, Arendt describes with her tough style. Her good friend Hans Jonas spoke in his biography, his autobiography, of this tough style of Arendt, this straightforward style. that doesn't spare the defects of the portrait. She describes the illusions and self-deception that German Jews went through their exile years in France and in the USA. Actually, this analysis does not focus on a sort of accusation, of denunciation of Jewish exiles for not being able to face their anxieties, their frailties, their flaws from a civil, from a political standpoint. It rather displays a sharp criticism of the status global order, which directly outcasts people deprived of their nationality. The civil patterns of the nation state demand exiled men and women undue efforts to become someone other, as the rejection of the Jewish identity forced them to flee to no man's land. Among the anxieties that Jewish people exhibit during their exile, Arendt highlights the attempt to make of the assumption of a foreign language and culture as a sort of civil protection, isn't to become a person in the Latin etymological sense of this term. It is someone capable of casting his, her own voice in public, personare, capable of personare, of the verb personare, which makes him, her recognizable by others. The Jews trying to speak English or French as mother tongue speakers just longed for finally resting in a reliable home. These people, these refugees, these exiled German Jewish people, these undocumented people, people who had lost their passports. In the case of Arendt, she didn't have back her passport till the early 50s in the USA. These people experienced what does it mean to be a bare human being around the earth. That is to say that and to recognize that you are nothing. You are not an active citizen. You are not a human being supported by civil equal rights in equal conditions of other people that possess a nationality, possess a passport, possess a national protection. So refugees were facing in the exile, through the exile, a very sad experience and a very hard experience. The experience of not having any political, civil infrastructure able to allow the subject to construct, to build up his, her own life. They were completely deprived of a normal, a usual support that the nation state concedes to the people it recognizes as its own people.
Yeah, sorry,
people.
sorry to interrupt you. We have to look at the time so that we have time for
Yes.
discussion?
Okay.
Sorry
Okay.
to interrupt you.
Okay, Alice, perhaps if I could end my lecture in 5 minutes, or okay?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, I would like to try to give a final balance to this gallery of text and of reflections of Arendt. Arendt was very interested not only in writing a story of European antisemitism and of Jewish civil resistance against antisemitism. She was also very keen on building up a sort of federalism that was not understood as an alliance between different nation states in the European continent, but also in the American continent or in Asia, also in Palestine, as she reflected on the conditions of birth of the state of Israel. She tried to boost, to foster an idea of federalism where the political agenda has not at the beginning a national ideal. A national ideal, and also some ties between the nation, the territory, and the identity, the cultural, the social identity, the national identity of the people. Arendt's federalism consists in try to foster the cooperation between bordering nations as Jewish people in Palestine and also Arab people in this country, in this territory. And this federalism also fosters the value of recognition of equal rights to all the people, all the subjects living together in the same territory. So federalism for Arendt represents, this will be perhaps my last word in the lecture, and I give the chance to discuss some of the theses I try to present in the lecture. Is the reply that Arendt gives to this value of a love for the Jewish people that Scholem reminded her you have to keep and to cultivate as a Jewish woman. On the contrary, and choosing a very different political path, Arendt was convinced that the best political tool and the best political resistance against anti-Semitism was a federalism able to overcome the deceits and the failures of the nation state, a nation state that only recognizes as active citizens the people, the national people, the people integrating the nation, the people integrating the majorities living in a determined territory. Thank you very much for your patience and for your time.